So, hello everyone and welcome to CoT Lorecast number 8, I think. Let's go with 8. And today we're going to be talking about the Charr. Pretty common race that a lot of people know, obviously a playable race, but we're going to delve into more in-depth lore, things we thought we were going to find out from before the game released, and things like that, and where we are now. I'm here with Bromms again.
Hello, meat.
And Alucardalina.
Hello.
And we are your lore buffs for today. So, I guess rather than kind of joke around here for a little bit, we're going to go right into the lore. So we're going to start off, I guess I'll start with the origin. Now, those of you who've played Guild Wars 1 or know anything about Guild Wars 1 will know that the Charr were they were a very, very prominent enemy, at least in the beginning of the game, and then later on in expansions through Eye of the North. But they've been around for a long time, but you may wonder, these are cat people. It's kind of different, and that's actually the exact thought process that ArenaNet had. Under one interview that I found, and I don't have the source, unfortunately, but originally they were going to have orcs in the game. That was going to be what we were going to fight instead of Charr. And they said, you know what, orcs are kind of played out. You know, every fantasy game there is, you know, your starter enemy and one of the enemies you constantly run into is orcs. So they said, let's go something different. So they said, you know, well, we as human beings have an innate fear of big cats like lions and cheetahs and tigers. So why don't we try to capitalize on that natural inborn fear, and we'll develop this new race. So originally, though, I can't find any concept art of it. They said we're gonna do a cat race, and the first concept was like super cutesy, like chibi cat, and nobody was afraid of it. So they had to go back to the drawing board to come up with something new. And that's kind of how we led to the Charr that we see in game now. I think I don't want to stomp on the history too much, because that's kind of Claire's piece here, being the Guild Wars 1 buff that she is. But let me just see if there's anything else that I have on anything. And all these, I have like 8 books open, like actual physical books, because I have like the art book and the strategy guide, and I'm like feeling super research mode. But the only other thing that I can find that's kind of interesting about the origin of the Charr, and more on the origin of the Charr's clothing, is in the art book. They said originally the Charr were tribal and didn't rely on clothing, so they didn't really have too much to pull from, so they weren't really worried about it because they were NPCs. But when Guild Wars 2 came around, they became a playable race, so you needed to have multiple kinds of armor, otherwise all the characters would look the same. So that's when they kind of came up with this idea that the Charr would be industrial and forgemen and all this kind of stuff. So they tried to build the armor, and I'm not sure I agree with all of at least this concept here, is that they were trying to build armor and clothing that would protect them from heat and chemicals and sharp objects and things that you would find in a forge. Or something, you know, an industrial type race would have. I don't know if I technically agree with that, because I feel a lot of the Charr armor doesn't really look like it would actually help protect you against anything. Especially like molten lead in a forge, but
They were dressed pretty, I guess, tribal in Guild Wars 1. Like, a lot of them just wore, like, these scraps of, I guess they ended up being loincloths.
Yeah, pretty much. And we'll kind of get into that in a little bit more, but in Guild Wars 1, Bromms, are you in a wind tunnel?
No,
Somebody's in a wind tunnel. Anybody else hear that?
I hear it, but I don't know what
Alright, well, we'll just go through it. But, yeah, we should mention in Guild Wars 1 that you only saw male Charrs, so that they could be in only loincloths, and they could get away with that. But again, we'll talk more about that. But since we kind of introed them, Claire, you want to talk about the... when I say Claire, it's because her name is Alucardalina Claire, just to point that out for people that may be like, why are you calling her Claire? That's the full name, and Alucardalina is really long. That's why Naveen always goes Alucardalina. So I may just shorten it to Claire. But anyway, Alucardalina, would you like to talk about the history of the Charr?
Not really after you sent me that new page, but I'll take a shot at it.
Well, you just have this innate knowledge from, and again, just to reference it back to it, projecteria.blogspot.com, her website, which I will be pulling pictures and images from, with her consent, of course, to use as background images for this video if you're watching it on YouTube. So, alright, well, take it away.
Alright, so basically, since we know that the humans weren't here all along, we have to go back further to when the Charr used to rule Ascalon. They basically a fighting race, and they fought anything and everything, like even one another, and this led to some problems. So they eventually decided to unite everyone underneath a single leader called the Con sometime between 100 or before 100 BE. And while this was happening, they were also battling the Forgotten, which were in the Blaze Ridge Mountains. And when that threat kind of ceased is when the humans arrived. So, you know, there's no luck for the Charr there. And the humans had their gods to help them, and they successfully pushed the Charr north out of Ascalon and into the Charr homelands. And so this drastically, like, took away from their land, and they weren't very happy about this. But they knew with the gods that they couldn't attack the humans right now. And this just broke the morale of the Charr, and what broke the morale even more is that during this, the Con was assassinated. So they went on like this whole thing to try to find a new Con, but since no one really agreed on one person, the Connor's 4 children broke the Charr up into 4 different legions. And of course they became the Ash Legion, and the Blood Legion, Iron Legion, and the Flame Legion, who were all known for different things. Like the Ash Legion was known for its stalkers and assassins. The Blood Legion was known for its fierceness and melee combat. And the Iron Legion was known for the Siege Devourers and their mechanical works. And the Flame Legion was basically known for their magical prowess. But even with these new leaders, the gods thought they would need gods of their own. The Charr thought they would need gods of their own, to claim back their land. And so the Burnt Warband went out. They were part of the Flame Legion, and they traveled to Hrongmare Volcano in northeastern Ascalon, and they found the Titans there, and immediately took them on as their gods. And because they took initiative, the other legions decided to unite underneath the Flame Legion banner. And then in 1070 AE, the Charr invasion took place, and they resumed their war against the humans. Their morale was a lot better now that they had not 1 but 4 leaders, and they were united underneath 1 legion at this point, and they had the gods. And so, with this, they struck Ascalon with the Cauldron of Cataclysm, which was given to them by the Titans. This brought the Searing, and it destroyed the Great Northern Wall, which gave them a line to invade Ascalon and Kryda. We know that in Ascalon, they were continuing to fight, but they also made their way down through Ascalon and over the Shiver Peaks, and they went through the Norn lands, through the Shiver Peaks. And the Norn originally fought them, but decided that these people can deal with their own thing. They're pretty cool. So, you know, the Norn being who they are, they're like, yeah, you can come on through. That's fine. And I kind of feel like they didn't know what they were getting into there. But I guess they were getting into nothing. But
yeah, they lucked out.
Yep. So the Charr made it to Crida through the Shiver Peaks, and there they brought the humans to their knees, and the humans were saved by Saul Delestio after he returned from his exile. This was a defeat aided by the Unseen Ones, and the Charr invasion in Crida was pretty much ended abruptly at that point. Even more abruptly was the Charr invasion in Or, in which the Charr broke through the Orian defenses. And it's said that they didn't even break a stride. And sorry, my cats.
It's alright. It's appropriate.
Yeah. Well, both of my cats think they're Charr, so that's fine. Upon seeing the Charr invasion, Vizier Kilbron read out aloud the Forbidden Scroll, and this caused Or to sink, and that became known as the Cataclysm. Kind of sucks for the Charr and the humans both, because they both drowned there.
Yeah.
So basically, if I can't have Or, you can't have it either. No luck for the Charr.
Yeah.
This war continued even in the Charr homelands between the Charr and the Evan Vanguard. And in 1072, the Titans invaded Tyria. They were slain in front of the Charr. This started a rebellion between the Charr of the other legions and the Flame Legion and the Shaman caste by Pyre Fearshot. And the Shaman caste were looking for new gods, and they found the Destroyers. And this began another revolution, because there was no desire to worship gods outside of the Flame Legion. And so the Flame Legion became kind of this enemy, even in the other Charr legions. So there was a lot of tense issues going on between all of the legions at this point. But they continued their attack on Ascalon, and this was led by the Flame Legion, of course. And eventually, King Adalbern unleashed the Bowfire, and this wiped out all the humans and left ghosts in their place, making it so that the Charr could never actually take the city. And so they left out. Their luck ran out again. That luck that they apparently don't have.
Good thing they have 9 lives, right, guys?
Alright. But there was karma at the back of the Shaman caste when Kala Scorchrazor, Pyre's Grand Cub, brought specifically trained female Charr against them, because female Charr weren't allowed to serve in the Flame Legion after Bethea Havocbringer. She spoke out against the Flame Legion and their ways, and she was sacrificed to their gods. And that left it so that no female Charr could fight on the battlefield. And so Kala decides to specially train the female Charr and bring them against the Shaman caste. And there was no chance of the caste survival, and they surrendered on the plains of Golgane. this created a new equality between male and female Charr. And eventually the Charr invasion stopped in 1090 AE with the Charr victorious over most of the lands.
Wow. All right, that was a lot. So thank you, thank you for that.
It's nice for us to like actually have a decent history of like one of the races, because the last two we've talked about were like we don't really know that much.
Yeah, I mean, next up on our list is to revisit the Norn. So that's one we will have a decent history about, especially because we played through a decent amount of that in Guild Wars 1. But and then we'll have humans after that, which obviously has the most history. But yeah, I just want to jump back and just touch on a couple of things that Claire mentioned, just because I know she mentioned the murder of the Con-ur earlier on, which led to the creation of the 4 main legions. No one actually knows who murdered the Con-ur. It's still a mystery to this day. So that's just kind of a little interesting tidbit. Maybe we'll get something revealed with that in the future. I don't know. But that's just kind of an interesting little tidbit. And, you know, it's funny, the Charr seem really, really impressionable.
Yeah.
You know, like, somebody just shows up and they're like, these guys are tough because they get gods. We gotta get our own gods. Hey, these things are made out of fire. That makes them a god, right? Cool. Let's follow them blindly.
We have to figure they've been fighting for such a long time, and then they see this basically kind of a new race come in with these gods behind them, and they just demolish the Charr. So, you know, it makes sense that the Charr be like, oh, we should probably try to get some of those because they seem really powerful. And then they come across the Titans, and they're like, that'll do.
Yeah.
It's like these things from this volcano.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the Flame Legion especially, then, like, they're like, okay, well, that didn't work out. So then they just latch on to the next, because it was the, was it the Destroyers?
Yeah, it's the next flaming thing.
Yeah,
right.
The next thing, I mean, okay, we get it, it's your Flame Legion, but, like, come on, you guys could break a stereotype here. You don't have
At
to.
least the rest of them were like, yeah, we're good. We had those Titan gods, and they didn't work out so well, so, we're just gonna step away from the whole god thing.
And yeah, we'll talk about that more when we talk more culture and things like that and religion, because that has heavily influenced the way the Charr are as we see them in Guild Wars 2, because we cannot play as the Flame Legion, but all the other ones are super anti-god of any kind. They're like, we killed our gods, when you watch the intro video and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
when you create a Charr.
We killed their gods.
What's up?
We killed their gods.
Yeah, I know, it was us. Don't. So maybe this makes Traherne like the fourth coming of the Charr, the fourth coming of Cormyr. I don't know.
Ugh.
People taking credit for stuff that we did.
Let us not speak about he who shall not be named.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to see if I have anything, because there are a lot of really good Charr Lore articles, and I will post the links to those in the description of this video. But I'm just kind of looking to see if anything really jumps out at me. Again, the Cauldron of Cataclysm, which sent the Searing Crystals all over the place, you can actually find that in Guild Wars 2. So if you travel in Ascalon, north of the area where the Great Northern Wall was, you can actually find that. And I believe it's either a skill point or a point of interest.
There's actually, like, this whole debate in-game of whether it should still be there or not. Because while one group sees it as, like, a relic and history, the other sees it as, like, a danger and a potential threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you listen in on the conversations, there's a lot of arguing about that.
Yeah, and I believe we know that wasn't the only one, because I believe, don't we get one in the course of our personal story? Possible.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, so there are more than one. And I mean, I also am a little bit sad. I wish there was more Charr in Prophecies, because they're such a huge part, especially of your pre-searing story. Obviously, they're the whole pre-searing story. But then, like, halfway in, they're kind of usurped storyline-wise by the White Mantle. And don't get me wrong, that's a great storyline. But I'm also glad we got to see them come back in Eye of the North. I feel like that was a really
that
good
was awesome seeing them come back. Yeah.
And again, I guess it's also something to point out. The areas that we experienced, the Flame Legion homelands in Guild Wars 1, we don't have access to those currently in Guild Wars 2. We only have the Iron Legion homeland. That's the Black Citadel is the Iron Legion, like the center, the city of the Iron Legion. Even though you can play as Blood and Ash Legion, we currently, I believe, don't know or anything about the Ash Legion or the Ash Legion or the Blood Legion homelands. We don't know anything about them. We don't know where they are, what they look like, where they're even located.
I think one of the concerns right now is that is where Krakatork used to sleep.
Okay.
And so I'm assuming that once they decide to do something with him, that will probably get that area up there.
Yeah, that would make the most sense, considering that whole mountain range that you can see in Guild Wars 1 is supposed to be sleeping Krakatork back.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It gives you a scale of just how big he should be.
Yeah, and Krakatork is... I feel, after seeing Zhaitan, that Krakatork has to dwarf Zhaitan. Yeah. Because, I mean, Zhaitan is... or Krakatork's wingspan is supposed to reach from horizon to horizon. I believe is the what they described in Ghosts of Ascalon. But again, not an Elder Dragon episode. Talking Charr. A couple other things I did see. I'm looking in the art book here, and it has a whole little section about the female Charr, and it talks about how, like I said, you didn't see any female Charr in Guild Wars 1, and that was, I don't know if that was by design or not, but they added the fact that you couldn't see female Charr in Guild Wars 1, and the fact because they were all oppressed, like Alucardalina mentioned, that was another reason to really make you have hatred towards the Flame Legion, because they were the ones, you know, we encountered in Guild Wars 1. But I'll just read a little excerpt from this because I just find it kind of funny. The Flame Legion of Guild Wars Prophecies was made all the more despicable by confining the female Charr to house duty and not allowing them anywhere near the front lines. In other words, there weren't any female Charr in the original game. The team knew this had to change, but the desire to have both male and female options for all 5 playable races resulted in a lot of trial and error. Character artist Katie Hargrove recalls the process. We knew we didn't want to do sexy cat girl. We wanted to differentiate them from male, but we didn't want them to seem less strong. I drew the first ones and they just didn't look quite right. They looked too human. I initially drew the females without their claws. They would retract when not in battle to soften them up a bit, but that didn't work out too well. They looked too nice. One benefit of working on a team is there's always someone there to take another stab at things when you get stuck. Hargrove asked fellow character artist Kristen Perry to give it a shot. Perry realized the females needed to feel as large and fierce as the males, but refined and sharpened to be feminine. Therefore, imposing large claws remained, but the addition of a long, fluffy hair on the tail sweeps gracefully. Hargrove continues, the easiest way to tell them apart is by how much fur is on the tail. Also, the females are sleeker from the waist up and not as muscular as the males. So, again, this is something that clearly, as mentioned with the sexy cat thing, could have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, they did a really good job, in my opinion, of how they did the female Charr. They do feel still very warlike, and they're definitely not cute in that respect, anyway. So.
What about rocks?
You just had to do that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You just couldn't let it. You couldn't let it live. Okay. For those of you who don't know who Rox is a character that was added in the Living Story. And if ever there was an anime Charr, it would be Rox, because she's got big, silly, kind of goofy anime eyes that just look completely out of place. Not just for a Charr, but for characters in Guild Wars, period.
Yeah, they're like double the size of most Charr eyes, which is like I think they wanted to kind of make her younger, if I understood it correctly. But at the same time, like it does look comical to a certain extent.
And I feel that's kind of the general consensus that most players find, is that she looks kind of comical. So, all right, I think that's all we've kind of got for the history. Obviously, like I said, there's a lot more, and there's a lot of really in-depth lore articles written by ArenaNet. And rather than read them all off to you, because Claire did a pretty good job of summing it up in a short period of time, covering a lot of information. So we will kind of link those in the description, and we'll let you guys do your own research as well. So, Bromms, did you want to talk physiology of the Charr?
Yeah, you covered it pretty well just by saying that they're kind of like feline type humanoids, but they're definitely the more bestial race of Guild Wars 2. They tend to walk kind of hunched over, and they're very muscular and tall, and they when they run, they kind of run on all four, well, arms and legs. They have fur patterns, their fur color and patterns resembles other feline species that we're familiar with. So they might have tiger stripes or cougar spots or what have you. They have two sets of ears, so their top ears are for hearing high-frequency sounds, and the bottom ears are for hearing low frequencies. They have trouble hearing mid-frequencies, which is what humans speak at, which is one of the reasons why they find humans so irritating.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them have four horns that protrude from the top and the side of the head. Some of the customization options we have in Guild Wars 2 for the horns are really, really cool, by the way.
Yeah, I really like a lot of the horn customization options.
Otherwise, the Charr cubs are born with fur, and they're actually more capable than human children when they're first born. They can walk and do things that their first day of being born, they're not just completely helpless. But beyond that point, humans and Charr kind of mature at the same rate. Yeah, I mean, as far as physiology, that's pretty much everything I can think of.
Alright, let me take a little stab at this here and see if I can't come up with anything else. I think you pretty much covered the majority of it. Yeah, let me just see if I've got anything in my other little books here. I can read you the intro about the description of the Charr as far as the limited edition strategy guide is concerned. It says, Charr, fierce, strong, and cunning, the cat-like Charr are made for war. Standing slightly taller than humans, the Charrs usually settle into a hunched posture, but they will drop at all fours when running. They have tails and short fur and a variety of colors and patterns, like those of tigers, leopards, lions, and cheetahs. Their elongated muzzle hides sharp, long canine teeth. While Charr do have retractable claws, they prefer to fight with weapons. With their ferocity and intelligence dedicated to battle, the Charr may find it more challenging to adapt to peace. Yeah, I feel like we pretty much hit the nail on the head with what they look like. Unrelated, and I'm not even sure why this came up in anything, but they do have, because they are, I guess, considered what you would consider a mammal.
Yeah.
So they do have mammary glands and do feed feed the Charr cubs as well as normal Charr cats, or normal cats in the world. Mammals would. Charr cats, mammals would in the world that we live in.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
My description, or what I think of when I think about the Charr, is if you take Beast from the Disney Beauty and the Beast movie, make it not Disney, and then make it like very warlike and a lot cooler. Like that's what the Charr looked like.
Yeah, there's something else I just wanted to mention, and I totally lost my train of thought. So that is that. We're gonna move on.
Derailed.
Yeah. Nope. It's gone. It's gone forever.
It'll come back.
Left the station.
Yep. Yeah. Mental train derailed. So, all right, we've got culture up next. I don't know if anybody wanted to talk culture. If not, I can cover culture. If anybody has anything they want to comment on.
Yeah, I'll touch on it a bit.
Okay.
We kind of mentioned the Charr are a very militaristic society. Let me see if I can find the word that I had never heard of before that describes it. They sort of have, it's called a cratocratic oligarchy, which means that everything is run by the strongest individuals, essentially, and the people in power are the ones that can seize it. So they see ideas of, like worship, for instance, to be weak, and they're very much about the strongest survive. They don't disbelieve in gods, as we talked about kind of in their history, but now they see them kind of as powerful beings, or like in the cases of the human gods, beings that they should kill.
Yeah.
But they separate their society into several, into a tiered faction system. So the most prominent, I think, are the warbands that we're familiar with. Each Charr is assigned to a warband in what they call the Farar, which we'll go into in a minute. And they generally take the surname of the warband. So, like, if you have the Ghost Warband, for instance, your Charr surnames are going to be like Ghost Crusher or Ghost Bane or Ghost Eyes, something like that. Warbands are typically around 10 members, but they can sometimes grow larger. When it gets too large, though, it's split up by the Legionnaire into two warbands. The Legionnaire is the leader and the commander of each individual warband. And then the Legionnaires report to Centurions, who are the next tier up. The Centurions control multiple warbands. The Centurions then report to Tribunes, which control multiple Centurions, and they report to the Imperator. And then the Imperators are the second highest rank. They're always the descendants of the Conner, which we had mentioned before. And they tend to rule in instances where there is not a Conner, like now. They're basically the leaders of the High Legions.
Right, and that actually brings up a point that Wooden Potatoes brought up, and I kind of thought about it before, and I just kind of slipped my mind, is the fact that the Charr call the Fire, or Flame, Blood, Ash, and Iron Legion the High Legions, which makes me wonder, and other people as well, were there low legions? Are there other legions we don't know about, like small little scrapper legions, or
It's interesting they're not just called the legions.
Yeah.
I assume that there are like some rogue warbands that aren't in any of the legions, and may have like their own little legion, air quotes.
Yeah.
Beginning when the Conner was assassinated, because I'm sure not everyone filed into the 4 legions.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you'd have little splinter cells that break off that don't. Maybe there's a group. Maybe we'll encounter them. That'd be kind of cool in Living Story if we came across, like, maybe there's a whole legion, or legion again in quotes, that's devoted to figuring out who killed the Conner to bring whoever did it to justice. I mean, that'd be kind. I mean, obviously they would be dead at this point, timeline-wise, but that'd still be kind of cool.
It could be passed on.
Yeah, and that's another thing I guess we kind of didn't touch on about the life expectancy of a Charr. Do we know? It's not. I know it's longer than a human, but anybody know?
No.
Not really. I don't
Okay.
think we've had like a clear example.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we could go look at like Pyre's viewing thing, his statue, and see if there was any clue. But we still don't know how old he was when we met him.
That's true too. Yeah. Well, that's something. If you find anywhere out there, one of our listeners, please let us know, because we'd be interested. I know. I'm imagining that it's longer than a human, probably by a decent amount. Nine lives jokes aside.
Even humans live a while. Everyone
Yeah.
lives so long.
Yeah. No, it does seem like the life expectancy of every race is quite long in Guild Wars. What else do we have?
There's a random forum post on the Guild Wars 2 thing that says there's an old Charr in Black Citadel that mentioned he's older than 90.
Okay.
So.
Alright, so at least 90. Charrs are carnivorous. They do not eat plants of any kind. Also, that might bring up, if you notice, that there are no plants in the Black Citadel, at least for the Iron Legion anyway. But they have no need for agriculture since they don't eat anything but meat.
I am going to correct you.
Oh, okay, correct me.
There is a place in the Black Citadel where there are just a bunch of plants being grown.
Huh.
And it is by the forge, the big molten forge thing. It's like around that area.
Well, that's interesting, because that's in complete contradictory to what ArenaNet said in one of their lore articles, specifically stating that the Charr do not grow vegetation because it has the potential to interfere with their technological structures.
Well, I'm sure it's more like, to them, like having a bonsai tree.
Well, I guess along the same lines, which is they do potentially grow things because they do have beasts of burden that they use to move their stuff around.
Yeah.
So it could be for the purpose of feeding those, their livestock. If you will.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll agree to disagree on this one.
Just letting you know it's there.
No, hey, I think I've explored the Black Citadel completely one time, and that was enough for me. So yeah, I trust your opinion on that a lot more because I just don't know. So again, like Bromms mentioned, Charr children are called cubs. Female cubs are often referred to as kits out of affection, so that's kind of adorable.
Aww.
Again, born fully furred, open eyes, functional limbs. They can follow their mothers even over harsh terrain. They eat meat within a month of birth and are fully independent several months later. They are raised by their parents for a very short time, and then after that they're placed into the Farrars, which is, we kind of mentioned that, which is a camp. I guess it would basically be an elementary school, might be the best way to refer to it.
It's the same kind of, well, not the same idea, but sort of the same idea.
Yeah, it's essentially, it's a training, it's, where they get their education, but it's also where they start getting their combat training as well. And then they're raised in large, like all these Charr are raised in mass packs for whatever legion that they're a part of. And then they're taught to fight, and, then they're also taught, scholarly within Charr reason, like about architecture and, buildings and structures. And obviously, if you're in one legion versus another, you're going to get, obviously Blood Legion's going to get more melee, combat training, whereas Iron Legion may get more, engineering type training. Let's see. And then when you graduate the Farrar is when you get placed in your first warband. And then that is your family, basically. Your warband is your family. And it is, I think we kind of even mentioned this in one of the previous, in the Ysura episode actually, that is basically their social structure is, you've got so many warbands, and, eventually, they can be divided up, like Brom said, if they get too big, if too many people join the warband. But then there's also kind of the alternative of this, is if a Charr loses their warband completely, they're the only one left, which I'm not sure I necessarily agree with this, per se, but then they become an honorless gladium. I don't know if honorless is also a good way to refer to them, but that's what they say. And a Gladium is essentially a Charr, and I guess that would technically be the lowest rank of Charr that you could be. Because we mentioned that.
You could be Flame Legion.
Well, that's true too. But Con being the top, the highest, which hasn't happened in a long, long time. And then you work your way down through Imperator, Tribune, yada yada yada, all the way down to Gladium at the bottom. And and it seems my understanding of this process is because you're such a tight-knit family and supposed to operate together, what did you do to be the only one left alive that the rest of your warband died and somehow you survived? You must be a coward and have no honor, is essentially what I gather from that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But, and we'll probably talk about her in a little while, is, what the hell is her name? The Vigil Leader. Almora Soulkeeper.
Yeah.
She's a Gladium, and that's why she started the Vigil. But she's a Gladium because for some strange reason, all of her warband that were patrolling Ascalon, when Kralkatorrik flew over, all of her warband was transformed into branded, and she had to fight all of them and kill all of them to survive. And for some strange reason, she wasn't changed into a branded. No one knows why.
Because she's just awesome.
I bet she was wearing a Sylvari.
That must have been it. That must have been it.
Don't give them any ideas.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, for some reason she wasn't changed, and because she had to fight her way out and slay her warband, therefore being the only member left of her warband, now she's considered a Gladium. And I don't necessarily agree with that. That was no fault of her own that she was the only one left. I mean, she could have died, but that seems kind of pointless.
Can't Gladiums still, get into warbands, though?
Yes, they can. Yeah. I should have probably prefaced with that, but
that's the whole thing with Rox now, is that she's trying to get into Ritlock's warband.
Right. It's difficult for a Gladium to get into a warband because you're essentially seen as this kind of honorless coward, and who's going to want you to join their warband, be a part of their family when they know what your past has brought you. But several Gladium could join together to make their own warband. I guess that would probably be the best way to do that. I think I also read somewhere that they try to join up with another warband as fast as possible after becoming a Gladium before word gets out. So that people don't know, and you're like, oh hey, can I join you guys? Cool, and then you're in. And then maybe word will spread, but jumping back to Ritlock for a second, and we'll talk about this a lot more later. He's part of the Stone Warband. What's up with the Stone Warband? We don't see them at all. We don't even hear about them at all.
Well, I mean, I'll talk about that later. So.
Okay. Alright. Fair enough. Well, I'll be educated along with our listeners, so that's exciting. Alright, culture. Do we have anything else?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it a little bit with the family thing, but the Charr family structure is really built around the warbands. So, a Charr cub will be raised up until the point that they can go to the Farar, and then after that, they're still technically a part of their family, but they change their surname. It's a lot different. It's not the same association that a human would have with their parents.
Right.
It's much less intimate than that, from what it sounds like. Your family, once you become or once you join a warband, is that warband for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of names, if I remember correctly, it is said that they give themselves their own last names, their own surnames, once they do join their first warband. And it just kind of changes each time you're in a different warband.
Yeah, that's actually something true, yeah, because I think you can change warbands as well, but, not... Obviously, one way to change is you lose your warband and you're trying to find a new one. But I believe what was the step up from from Legionnaire, Centurion.
Centurion, yeah.
It's either your Centurion or above, I believe, has the ability to remove you from a warband and plant you into another warband for the purposes of a mission, something like that. Like, let's say you're part of the Stone warband, and, you know, your skills are exceptional in, you know, you have exceptional skills for this task that the Ghost warband is going on. So I feel the higher up in, you know, as far as the Legion goes, hierarchy, they can say, hey, you know, we need you to join up with the Ghost warband and then run out and take care of this task. So I believe that can happen.
Yeah, and like we said before too, once the warbands get big enough, they'll split. So you might be known as, you know, Grunt, Ghost Crusher of the Ghost warband here, but once it gets too big and splits up, you might be Grunt something else of the other, you know, rat warbands.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and that's also, you know, canonical reasons if you want to change the look and the name of your Charr character that you've made in Guild Wars. You know, in the game, that's a way for you to do so and still stay within canon.
Yep.
So, yeah, looking out for our RP buds out there. That's for you guys. Let's see, what else do we have? I guess the Primus is that the, nope, don't listen to me. There are a couple other ranks of Charr that are like lesser ranks. Like there's is it a Primus is the one that rules over the Farrar? I believe.
Let's say yes.
Alright, hang on. I'm gonna find this out for you guys. Because I'm pretty sure that's what a Primus is someone that rules over the Farrar. It's like the leader of the Farrar. I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm sorry, guys.
That's fine.
Bear with us. Title of an adult instructor of the Farrar. As cubs are born, they are brought to their legion's Farrar to be educated and raised in the warband. So essentially, I was 1, correct, so yay me. 2, this is actually a thing that like old Charr will do when they're too old to be in combat. If they don't want to just be useless. So this is something older Charr can become instructors, or maimed Charr if they are no longer able to fight, or something like that. This is a way for them to still be active in their legion and train younger Charr in the correct way to go about doing things. A brevet is another rank, and this is a temporary field commander. So, for instance, let's say you're out and it's a massive scale war, and you know, the Centurion of a given group is killed in battle. Then the Tribune can say, "You there," then they become a brevet, and it's like a temporary field command post. And then eventually, when things die down, then they can kind of come up with who they want to actually take on that role. But in times of emergency, brevets can be created. There's also, I believe it's called Caster. I forget how you pronounce. I don't know how you pronounce that. Is a Charr Quartermaster, and again, this is another one for those older Charr, and they basically do any kind of administrative kind of guidance and map keeping and things like that other Charr can't handle or don't want to handle because they're active. And the last one is a Scrapper, and this is actually the name of a warband. And you know, you could have your whole great Charr name that you came up with, but if your warband gets in trouble, then everybody in that warband is just referred to as Scrapper. You lose your whole identity is changed. You are just a Scrapper now. And this is basically you did something wrong or you screwed up somewhere, and you're given some sort of stupid, menial task that nobody wants to do. You actually see Scrappers throughout Ascalon, and I think you even see some in the Black Citadel. but it's essentially, you know, like, oh, you need to, like, we need to move these rocks from here to here, or you need to run around to all these broken Iron Legion, you know, machines and salvage what you can. So if, and the what's kind of funny and could be traumatic for other Charr is if you continue to disappoint and screw up consistently over and over on multiple missions, your warband and all of you can permanently be dubbed scrappers. So you never get your identity back.
Ouch.
You are a scrapper forever, and you will forever be looked down upon because there's only one way that you become a scrapper. So, Gladiums are looked down upon by the Charr, but there's also a little bit of pity there because they lost their warband. If you're a scrapper, then you're considered to be untrustworthy or some kind of a troublemaker or something that slotted you in that role. So
I feel like because I'm running around as a Charr doing all these menial tasks through Ascalon that maybe I'm a scrapper.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'll put that out there again to help the RPers out there. This could be give you some fun new ways to go about it, titles and things like that. But yeah, you could. What I didn't know myself until doing the research just recently is that you could permanently become a scrapper. I knew that was a thing that could happen if your group really screwed up, and like, you know, it's kind of like a hazing too almost. But I didn't know that if you continue to disappoint, you can become a permanent scrapper, and then basically that sucks to be you because you're like the worst, and the other Charr look down on you and know that you had to have done something consistently wrong to get slotted there. So that's rough. Apparently, in extremely unusual circumstances, Charr have actually been known to join guilds with humans or other races in lieu of joining a warband. Did not know that was a thing. So they may be, this may be what your scrappers do, you know, outcasts or people that aren't really highly respected within the Charr legions or, you know, within the Charr race as a whole. So they, instead of joining a warband, they join a guild with other races.
There are some Charr that really don't like other Charr.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I imagine those are probably the people that end up going.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, Charr have a history of fighting amongst themselves. And I imagine removing yourself from that situation would help you from becoming permanently a scrapper.
Yeah, because that would be, nobody wants to be a scrapper. Remember that, kids. No one wants to be a scrapper.
Don't be a scrapper.
I feel like that's, you know, one of those the 80s, 90s, like, don't do drugs commercials.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, nobody wants to be a scrapper. Brought to you by Chronicles of Tyria. I guess one other thing it fits in the culture piece and it kind of fits in the history too. And we can kind of touch on this more when we talk Ember Doomforge, I guess. But the Claw of the Con-Ur is this weapon that was obviously was the Con-Ur's weapon, and it was lost in, I believe it was lost in Ascalon when the what was his name, who tried to reunite all the Charr together under the Con-Ur, and he ran in to go fight King Adalbern, and then he lost the Claw of the Con-Ur in the center of Ascalon. So this is going to come up a little bit more when we talk about other kind of key characters within the Charr race, but just wanted to put that out there so you know a little bit about that. You know, Smolder the Unflinching was his name, I believe. Nope, I lied. That's the head of the Iron Legion. Don't listen to me. Alright, let's keep going, because I'm getting confused. Alright, did you guys have anything else culture-wise before we move on from there?
No, I don't think so.
Not really.
Alright, next up, religion. They have none. Okay, moving on.
That was easy. the Flame Legion because they're dumb.
Yeah, I think before we jump to the Flame Legion, I guess we can kind of touch on government, because we kind of pretty much already did that. Again, being the Charr, being so militaristic, it's whatever Bromms said before, cratocratic oligarchy.
Yeah.
So they are just heavily ruled by their military system, and they use these warbands and things like that. That's how they govern any issues that they need to deal with. And again, it's that, you know, I'm bigger, I'm stronger than you, so I get to rule over you, kind of a thing. So let's go Flame Legion now. We got a little bit of a prelude to the Flame Legion through Alucardalina's little bit of the history of the Charr. But let's talk about them as we see them in Guild Wars 2, because we kind of know the history. We played through, or we've seen or heard of the history from Guild Wars 1 on the Flame Legion. But let's talk about them as far as Guild Wars 2 is concerned. So, what do you guys think about Flame Legion and Guild Wars 2 as far as they stack up to other evil factions?
They're kind of a joke.
Yeah,
like,
that's
even
kind
to
of how I
the Charr,
feel.
that, you know, the Gold Legion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here's a gold star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's weird because they've kind of been prominent with stuff, but they're not very intimidating as far. I don't know. I think saying that they're kind of a joke is a good way to put it.
They just keep trying to do the same things over and over again. Like, they keep going back to the searing cauldrons and stuff.
And we did have what's-his-face there. Well, if you play the Citadel of Flame story mode, was it Gaharin Balefire?
Balefire, yeah.
And he was going to try to rise to become the new like god of the Flame Legion. And I mean, he gets thwarted, but he gets thwarted by Logan Thackeray. I mean, and Ritlock, but Logan Thackeray helped that, so that gives you kind of an idea of how tough Gaharin Balefire really was.
Yeah.
Help is in air quotes.
Yeah. Look out! There's a fireball coming! You know, over and over. Thank you, Logan, for that. We wouldn't have figured that out without you.
Let's not forget, too, that the Flame Legion, just recently, within the last couple of months, teamed up with the Dredge to form, for the whole Flame and Frost, the Molten Alliance.
Yeah, and that was kind of the some of the reasoning behind that. And it makes sense, and I'm actually pretty impressed with the Flame Legion to come up with this, but as we found out later on, that they were didn't really want to team up with the Dredge. They were kind of over-orchestrated by some unknown party. But because they're exiled from the other legions, all they have is their magic. They have no access to any kind of machinery or things that Charr are known for, because they don't have interaction with the Iron Legion. So, they think, well, let's join up with the Dredge, who are, engineer machinery experts in their own right, and maybe, between combining their lack of magic with our magic and our lack of technology with their technology, we could be a force to be reckoned with, and, maybe people will take us seriously, because I think people consider the Dredge and the Flame Legion to both be jokes. The Dredge are just a little bit more formidable because they're immune to blind. But that's about it.
I just can't believe that felines decided to team up with rodents.
Yeah. Yeah, well...
It didn't get them very far, to be fair.
yeah. And I believe we know that it all... I forget, there is the whole that they didn't start. Like, it wasn't their idea. There's some greater power that's in charge of forming, of that, caused them to team up. And hopefully, with this Queen's Speech content we'll be getting next week, we'll actually figure some of this out, because I think ArenaNet said in the preview of it that Queen Jenna's speech will help to tie together all of the living, this will help tie together everything that's happened from Flame and Frost through the Aether Blades, through Zephyrite and all that stuff. So I'm hopeful for that.
That'll be good.
But we'll talk more. What's up?
Well, I was just saying, as far as the Nemesis factions are concerned, I think the Flame Legion is probably maybe the Bandits and the Centaurs, but the Flame Legion is kind of one of the least interesting, at least now. Some of their history was kind of cool, especially going back to the original Guild Wars, but now they seem like their power is fading very quickly. I can't imagine that they're going to be a threat for all that much longer. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you because they are kind of boring. Like, I don't know.
They keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for them to find new gods.
Oh yeah. Well, once maybe when. I don't know, we'll pick some other fiery enemy that'll show up. Maybe, you know what? We're lucky they didn't make it to Metrica Province because they probably would worship the fire elemental.
Yeah.
So
they're like a Grawl.
Yeah.
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 Or maybe they can just start worshipping the sun aspected Zenith or Zephyrites.
Maybe just start hanging out with the Hylic and they can worship the sun.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean that's not going anywhere, presumably. So we'll have a god to worship.
Yeah.
We're just gonna go destroy that next.
Yeah, right. Oh, they're worshiping the sun. Well, I guess we better take that out. And they're like, guess what? That was the plan all along. Now everybody dies. Alright, so, yeah, did you guys have anything else you want to say on the Flame Legion? They were a lot more interesting, like we said, and when we did our last show, earlier, about a year ago, on the Flame Legion, it was a lot more interesting because there was speculation about what was going to happen, and Gaharin Balefire was going to become a new god, and it was all, what's going to happen. And now that we know, and we know that Guild Wars 1 lore for the Flame Legion, and the evil Charr, if you will, was a lot more interesting. And it's just kind of like meh in this game.
There is one thing about them, and correct me if I missed something, but a lot of the Flame Legion Charr are almost like starting to they're like mutating or transmuting themselves into flame beings. Like a lot of them, their arms are made out of flames or their bodies are made out of flames. So it's almost like they're becoming something else.
Yeah.
Maybe they're all going to become their own gods.
There you go.
Because they're all becoming more fiery. So that you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where we end up, because they're just... I don't know.
In the Flame and Frost things, wasn't it that they had to go through some sort of ritual to do this, because they also did it to the Dredge?
Yeah, I think you know what? I completely forgot, because there were those kind of the flame dredge.
I thought that they were like forcing some of the Dredge to go through this. Like the Dredge really didn't want to.
Huh.
That was the impression I was given anyway.
No, that makes sense too now that you mention that, because yeah, that is kind of the case. There were those flame dredge, and we could kind of tell through the little bit of mails and stuff over the 4 months that we would get that there was kind of some animosity between the two, which eventually kind of blew up on them, but along with the molten facility. But all right, so I guess next it will be the key characters, and there's quite a few here, but we kind of touched on a little bit. So who wants to talk key characters first?
I will.
Okay.
Well, like I said, I'd cover Ritlock.
Yep, that's fine.
And Ritlock is a member of the Stone Warband and the Tribune of the Blood Legion. He is one of the most recognized Charr in the Black Citadel. We know, of course, he was part of Destiny's Edge, and we kind of meet him while the rest of his, not really, it wasn't his warband with him, it was just a set of mission, goers. Mm-hmm. You know, he told them such and such is a bad idea, let's not do it, and they didn't listen. And we kind of assume that Ritlock is one of those Charr who don't like other Charr. And so, he becomes close friends with Logan Thackeray, you.
Yeah. Really.
And becoming part of Destiny's Edge. We know he wields Prince-Ruric sword, Sohotin. As for his warband, he doesn't hang out with them. He's known to be rather strange to the other Charr because he distances himself from his warband. And, this is probably for the best because he's killed most of his superiors to gain his titles.
Yeah.
So
I remember reading that.
He doesn't care to hang out with the Stone Warband, but he's still part of it. He busies himself with other missions. And that is why we don't care about the Stone Warband.
Well, thank you for clearing that up for me, because now I know. Because I was very confused up until then.
Battle.
Yeah, it's true. Knowledge is power. Alright, do we have anything else for Ritlock?
Not really. I mean, I could go on and on and on about him, but I won't because, he's the best thing ever.
He is definitely better than Logan Thackeray. Not that that's saying much, because Logan Thackeray is pretty much the worst.
Logan the Slackery.
Yeah, really. Alright, Bromms, did you have any Charr that you wanted to cover?
You know what? I was gonna talk about Tibble, but I'm gonna let you do that.
No, you can talk about Tibble.
Okay.
I mean, I know
like
Siren's your favorite, so I'll let you take Tibble. Let's see if you do him justice.
All right. Well, Tybalt is he's essentially the Orders of Whispers mentor that the players will interact with while they're going through their order story. When he first shows up, he's disguised as an apple seller, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And he basically, he for some reason he continually goes on about how he loves apples. I guess that's his big disguise in the Order of Whispers. When you hold on, let me find this real quick here. Sorry, I just accidentally closed my notes. You know what? I'm gonna let you take over from there while I get this back up because I don't want there to be a big pause.
Okay. So yeah, Tybalt is also considered to be, by most players, I would say, one of the more lovable, Orders characters. Better than, a lot of people like him better than Siren. I like Siren as well, so I understand that. But he just has a lot of character. And Claire, have you played the Order of Whispers storyline?
Not yet.
Oh, you haven't.
I've been entirely spoiled on it though.
Okay, so well, obviously we all kind of know the ultimate goal of what happens here.
Yeah.
But, he's just, one of the missions he takes you on is he takes you on a drinking game. Like, he takes you to go, you're going to out-drink some pirates to get information. And that's actually what led to the development of Belcher's Bluff, the game that we have. It's basically a reskin with more additions of what we played in the Order of Whispers storyline. So, that's pretty cool. And I just, apples, man. Just apples. I love. I'm a little. You gotta take over, man. I can't do this.
I don't know. Tybalt was okay. I honestly don't understand what the big to do is with him, but I guess I kind of get it. He to me doesn't seem like he's very Charr-like, but I don't know.
I could get that. He is kind of more. He's a little goofier, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, I'll buy that. But he just. I don't know. For a lot of people that picked Order of Whispers to start, he was just like their first introduction to a character that really was interesting and had, you know, a bunch of levels, and he didn't steal your story, and he was funny.
Right.
And, you know, and then eventually he makes the ultimate sacrifice to save you all. And, you know, it just tugs at the heartstrings a little, you know? Also, I want to point out that he's the only one that has his own custom backpack skin. I mean, Siren and War Master Norn guy,
I
they
don't think you want to wear them on your back.
No. But, I mean, Bromms would snatch up a Siren backpack in like a heartbeat.
I probably would too.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I would. Now that I think of it.
So, yeah, I don't know what else to say about Tybalt.
I don't know if it's ever said anywhere, but I think he's actually a Gladium? Or Lagywn?
Yes, actually he is. And that's, he took the name Left Paw as his surname because because there was an accident that caused him to lose his hand and I think his warband. I don't think it's ever actually said that he is a Gladium officially.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty much believed that that's why he joined the Order of Whispers, was because he wanted to, like, he lost his family, so, or his warband, I should say.
Right.
But yeah, he's missing his right hand. He's got like a robot hand, which is kind of cool. Wish we saw more robot hands. 'Cause I want a robot hand for my character. Also, I want my damn robo legs, but that's another story. So, I talked about Almora Soulkeeper, and I feel like a bunch of these characters we have done episodes on, like Naveen did a whole lore bite on Almora Soulkeeper, I believe. I know she did one on Kala Scorchrazor, who was, as Claire mentioned, Pierce Fireshot's Grand Cub. So, Almora Soulkeeper is the leader of the Vigil. As I said, she founded the Vigil when she lost her warband to Kralkatorrik, and realized at that point that individual little warbands and skirmishes here aren't going to be what stops the dragon. We need a grand fighting force, and therefore formed the Vigil. And that's what led to what we have now in Guild Wars 2, a combining of all the races for a frontal head-on assault. I guess I mentioned Gaharin Balefire. He was just, you know, he's talked about a little bit before you get into the Citadel of Flame dungeon, and then once you're in there, you know, he's the story mode boss. Who else is worth mentioning?
Pyre.
Okay, you want to talk about Pyre?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I love my Charr characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pyre was a Charr who spoke up against the Shaman Castaways, much like Kala Scorchrazor. He and his warband actually went in and killed a shaman and destroyed one of their temples, and had to flee because of that. We kind of meet him imprisoned by the Flame Legion because of this, and he teams up with the Eye of the North heroes, who offered to help him and his warband to destroy the leaders of the Shaman caste, and then he just kind of tagged along for the ride of destroying another set of false gods, just to spite them.
Yeah, he's one of my. I tried to have him on my team as much as possible.
Yeah, like Pyre set that for me.
He was the character that convinced me to play a Charr in Guild Wars 2. Like my first character was a Charr because of him. He was awesome in Guild Wars 1.
They actually introduced him because they needed to make the Charr look a little more friendly before they introduced them as a playable
Really?
race. Yeah.
That's awesome because it totally worked.
Yes, it did. Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually remember reading that now that you say that, because yeah, it was kind of up until then the Charr were basically just this evil bestial race. So why would you even want to play as one?
Yeah. So they had to gain sympathy points, except it was more like awesome points.
Yeah.
Both Ritlock and Pyre were voiced by Steve Blum.
You know, it sounds, now that you say that, I kind of can see the, I don't feel there's a whole lot of difference between the two voices. But either way, excellent. It's masterfully done. As per usual for his normal voice acting.
I'm glad I couldn't get his autograph.
I know. It's a bummer. I'll see if I can't snag one for you in my travels.
Okay.
Alright, who else do we have? The other two, Smoder, the Unflinching, he makes a pretty big cameo in Edge of Destiny, because he is the Charr that sets up the agreement with Queen Jenna that they'll set up a peace treaty if the humans, or is that, I'm sorry, that might be, that's Ghost of Ascalon, I'm sorry, where he will set up a peace treaty with the humans, or if they can return the Claw of the Con-Ur to him in the Black Citadel, and that's what the whole events of Ghost of Ascalon are, is the trek to Ascalon City to return the Claw of the Con-Ur. And eventually that does happen, as we see, because there is a truce between the Charr and the humans in Guild Wars 2. And, you know, I thought I remember reading somewhere that you were supposed to be able to see the Claw of the Con-Ur in Smoder the Unflinching's, like, area of the Black Citadel, and I can't find it for the life of me. You think it would have, like, a interactable, you know...
I heard it was hanging up somewhere.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, at least it said, I haven't really gone and checked for a while, but it said, you know, it was supposed to be hanging up within his office in the Black Citadel, but I never saw it. Maybe I'll have to go back in, or I'll send, you know, one of the expert Tyrian explorers, aka Alucardalina Claire, to do a little recon for me.
I'll probably go look right after this.
The other leader of the, I believe, of the Ash Legion is the only one we haven't really covered, and that's Malice Sword Shadow. But we don't really have much information on her at all, other than she's a young female Charr, and she's the Imperator of the Ash Legion. That's about all we have on her. We talked a little bit about Rox as well. If you've been playing through the Living Story, she'll be fresh in your mind. She actually is in the Crown Pavilion as well. She plays a part in this piece of Living Story. And there was a very recent lore article called Delegation that deals with her trying to get into Ritlock's Warband, and you can actually watch. Wood Potatoes did a video called a story time of that story as it was, kind of explains what's been going on with Rox, so I would recommend you check that out. I'll link that in the description as well. I don't know. Guess I have anything else?
Did you mention Ember?
No, I didn't, and if you would like to, I talked about Ghosts of Ascalon, but I didn't go into Ember Doomforge.
Well, there's not really a lot to go in about, other than, you know, she was ordered by Almora to accompany the team in Ghosts of Ascalon to Ascalon City to retrieve the Claw of the Con-Ur. She was supposed to basically be their guide, and now she's working for the Vigil, so you can actually still see her in game.
Alright. I think, is that, I don't know, do you guys have anything else? I feel bad, because, like, I know there's a lot more Charr, but I don't know if anybody's really worth mentioning. I feel we hit the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Alright, so do you guys have any last comments, thoughts on Charr, speculation for what you think we'll see from the Charr in the future? Will the treaty last? Will Queen Jenna totally alter that come the end of this next patch? What do you guys think?
I think the Charr are going to be our allies for a long time. They have their land back. I mean, most of it anyway.
Right.
And
Yeah. Oh, sorry,
go ahead.
I feel like a lot of, like, there's still definitely some animosity between humans in Charr, but it's not quite as bad as it used to be, obviously. And so I think that will actually just continue to lessen. I can't see anything really huge splitting them up, unless there's, obviously something we don't know about. But
We are like finding more Charr and humans becoming friends. I think it has a lot to do with the dragons right now.
yeah,
Is that everyone kind of agrees that we all need to be in this together for the moment and just get along. And I think that quite a while of peace will come from that, even after the dragons are gone.
Yeah, I feel unless somehow the Flame Legion rise again, which I don't see happening.
yeah.
Then we'll probably have peace for quite a long while.
Plus, the Charr have a lot going on that kind of threatens them at the moment. Like, they've obviously got the whole Flame Legion thing, and then there's all the branded.
And the
They're not
ghosts.
in a good place to have to fight by themselves.
And Claire just mentioned, and the ghosts as well.
Yeah, and all the ghosts too.
So yeah, they do need all the help they can get.
Yeah. I think that if the Flame Legion do rise again, they'll probably get help from us as humans,
Hmm.
as well as all the other races. I think
Right.
it'll be a big to-do. But I don't think they'll turn on anyone.
Yeah, I don't think it's honestly. I think right now we just have the upper hand, to be honest, and that's kind of why they are where like we have this truce
Yeah.
because I mean, if they could get more benefit out of attacking us, and when I say us, I mean the other races, then they would. But right now, there's no point in doing it. They'll lose out if they do. So
We know that a lot of the Charr in the middle of it states in the middle somewhere in Sea of Sorrows that a lot of the Charr were actually beginning to get tired of the bloodshed.
mhm. Yeah, that actually, yes, I remember that. It's right towards the beginning, actually, of the Sea of Sorrows novel. So we won't delve too much into that because that's still fairly new.
Yeah.
But all right, I think we'll pretty much wrap it up there. Unless you guys, like I said, unless there's any other little tidbits you'd like to throw in.
None for me.
Ritlock's like the best thing ever.
I mean, he is the only statue you get with the collector's edition of the game, and the only mini you get for buying the collector's edition. You have to get everybody else outside of that. Actually, there isn't anybody else. Can you get a mini Logan Thackeray?
Yeah.
Oh, but you can't get
You can get a mini Logan and a mini Air, but that's it.
no love for Zoja Arcade
No.
Or Snaff.
or Snap. I would buy a mini Snap. I would definitely buy a mini Snap. All right, so I guess we'll wrap it up. So for Chronicles of Tyria Lorecast, episode number 8, The Charr, I'm Lagwyn.
I'm Brown.
And I'm Alu.
And we'll see you next time.
Alright.